Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. It's a beautiful day out there. Still got lots of snow where I'm at. I hope everybody is staying safe wherever you're at. Let me just get rid of this little thing. There was a little hiccup, so do me a favor in the chat. Just let me know you got some good AV going. I noticed I started the live and then it stopped and said, hey, sorry. And that scared me, so we'll see. But I'll watch from little AV checks. But while I do, I want to give a quick tip for success. For those of you showing up early and on time, I really appreciate that you do, because when you do, LinkedIn pushes the notice out to other people. We've got about 50 people who are showing up early and on time out of almost 200 people who registered to attend. And so LinkedIn just needs to remind people. It's like, oh, here it is. A little later in today's training, I'm going to tell you how to never miss one of these and not have to wait for LinkedIn's reminder. Okay, my tip for success for those of you showing up early and on time is, out of the 7 habits for highly effective people, habit number 1 is what I'm going to be talking about all this week. And habit number 1 is be proactive. Be proactive. The alternate is be reactive. Let things happen to you compared to making things happen to you. And my tip is around that, right? Don't wait for opportunities to drop. Go find them. I'm going to talk about that today in the training, in business development training. But really, just when you think about what does be proactive mean, you can wait for opportunities to come to you. They come into your door one way or another, like Sam, or you hear about it, or you can go do the things that you will be able to find the opportunities. And you're much more likely to find opportunities that you want, that are more likely for your company to be able to win. So if you're with me, be proactive in the chat as I proactively get started with the training. I don't know if that was a good way to segue, but it's the segue that I have. So we'll start with that. All right. That was just, again, a quick tip of success for those of you showing up early and on time. Thank you for doing that. One thing government contractors need to understand about federal buyer is that nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. Nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And what this means is that if you want success as a vendor to the federal agencies that are out there, you need to care more about their needs, their challenges, et cetera, than you do your own solution. Sometimes we go in there thinking we have 2 mouths and 1 ear, but really we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And the idea is you talk far less than you listen. Business development is this process where you begin to have discussions around those needs and aligning them to the solution, right? This is where that process begins. It's where you can show that you care. And when you have enough conversations out there and you're able to show that you care, that's when doors just start opening for you. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So today's training is going to be around introduction to business development. If you've been here a while, then you know what you're doing. But even me, when I prepare this training, I got 20 plus years, 30 years of experience in this space in the federal market and government contracting. And I still learn. Even when I'm preparing my training to teach you, I don't just teach for the brand new person who's coming in, right? It's helpful to you who's coming in, but it's also helpful to billion-dollar company business developers. How do we do our job? Because the process fundamentally is the same. What we're able to do, the resources we have are different. We got to be a lot more scrappy when we're brand new, which is totally fine. But as we go forward, understand that the process never changes. It's just what's available, how many people you have available, how many tools, how many subscriptions to SaaS products that speed your job along. So in today's training, I want to cover down on business development in 3 different ways. I describe business development as understanding an agency, building strategic relationships, and identifying slam dunk opportunities. And I'm going to expand into this and explore this more with you. But I just wanted to put in context really quick where business development fits into the federal sales lifecycle. You can watch a training I did yesterday on January 6th, because today is the 7th. You can watch that and you can see where I laid out the entire federal sales process. But basically, business development happens in the beginning, where you're understanding an agency, building those strategic relationships, and identifying many opportunities that your company might be able to pursue. Capture is the next step in the federal sales lifecycle, and that's where you take one opportunity and pursue it. Tomorrow, my training is all about capture. And then the final step is proposal writing. So capture is about shaping an opportunity. proposal writing. It's about writing a good response, what I call a winning proposal going to the government. So this is what we're going to cover down on today. I appreciate you guys engaging in the chat. That's awesome. This is your community. If you're able to, don't do this if you're driving, but if you're able to, engage in the chat. Tell us who you are. The shorter your chats are, the easier it is for people to read, because if the chat bar starts scrolling, then something you write just disappears. So learn to write in chats a little bit smaller and just more of the chats. Okay, if you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce and co-founder of GovCon in a Box, which I'm super excited about. And I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret, it's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. This is what having skill sets around business development can do for you, is you can have predictable and repeatable results within that agency of identifying opportunities, for example. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. It is the largest government contracting newsletter on LinkedIn by far. It's even bigger than DoD's. Right. And so it's really a matter of pride for us that the content we provide in that newsletter is so important to people that they engage it, they use it, they tell friends about it. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. If you are subscribed, please tell 2 friends today. If you tell 2 friends and they tell 2 friends, well, you get the point. All right. And tomorrow's training is about capture. I already mentioned that. Make sure you go in, click on register, let us know you're coming. We had, I think, 185 people registered for today's training. This is cool for me and for training and for my team, right? But this is super cool for you and for networking. Networking and coming to these kind of events and seeing other people engaging. I'm looking in at Daniel Claybrook, and security group, military readiness, healthcare, and admin support. Well, now I know what he's doing, and I can begin to dig in there. Niche down, Daniel, niche down. But anyways, engage with people. This is your community, your network. I facilitate it so that you have a chance to meet people without having to leave your computer or leave your office. Okay. One last thing I want to do is just a quick shout out to the companies that are in the 100 Club. Congratulations to those of you who have a federal visibility score of 100 out of 100. I say if you have a score of 70 or below, you're invisible to the federal buyers. And so these companies, I think it's about, I can't see, it's about 115 or something. These companies out of 360,000 have a federal visibility score of 100. What that means is when federal buyers look for companies like theirs, they kind of rise to the top because they're making it easy for buyers to find them. That's what I want you to do. So go to govconinabox.com. You can do that. I share the score for free. I give you guidance on how to do it for free. And all the changes to get your score to 100 is free because it's on the federal sites. It's not mine. I'm just passionate about getting everybody to 100. And so that's a really important thing to me. Thanks, Charles. 100 Club rocks in the chat. Okay, that might be the last time I look at the chat, though, because I want to focus on diving deep into the training. So we got 22 minutes, which is normal for my training where I get to this point. The first step I want to talk about is understanding the agency. This is the first part about the federal sales life cycle and business development in particular. I call it research when I teach the seven-step process for federal revenue success. And I can show a diagram of that later. But the very first step is research, understanding the agency better than they understand it themselves. Because like I said before, people don't care what you know until they know that you care. When you take the time to understand an agency, learn about the agency, learn about what's important to them, etc., it is really obvious to them that you care when you have a first meeting with them and you're talking about some things you've seen out of strategic documents or out of their budget. I saw this come up in the news, whatever it is. When you've taken the time to research them, and when I say research and understand an agency, I mean it's ongoing. It's not one and done, right? It's this idea that if I want to get into the Army and I want to get $50 million in revenue out of them every year, that's doable for me. If I have the right thing that they need, they spend the money, right? So I can get it if I can, position myself as a good company, good choice to them. Well, if I want that, then how long would I invest in learning about them? Well, I'd certainly put in a few weeks just to dive deep into it. And then I would make a point of doing it every single day. My team and I, we have Cecilia as my sister. She's on this chat. I see her. She's got an alert set up, a Google alert, because this is how important you are to us. The Google alert says, tell us if anybody says anything about a capability statement. That way, if one of you is shouting out that, hey, we've updated our capability statement, we're trying to get better at going in and supporting you. I got 36,000 connections. If I engage your network humbly, it's going to give you more visibility, right? Well, you want to kind of do that same thing with your federal agencies that you're targeting. And so when you do those kind of things, that's when the government really can see, that customer can see that you care. Then they start caring about what you know, right? One of the other things that I said it here, and I kind of alluded to it already, business development is not for the short-term wins. If I have a short-term win, like I need to get revenue in the next 90 days, like I'm not eating, or I need, we lost some revenue, we need to gain some revenue. Well, now you forget about business development for 1 second. Now you're on a like all hands on deck, let's go put out the fire. Business development is that long game. When we say that government contracting is 6 to 24 months long, this is what we mean. You're taking the time to really understand the agency. You're taking the time to find opportunities and shape them and all that kind of stuff. So think about business development as that long game. It's not tactical or transactional, right? You're not just getting it done. A couple of tips I have here on the bottom about how you can do your research and how you can understand that agency is start with their mission. I've heard from government buyers where they've met with, those of us small businesses who don't even know what they do. They don't understand the mission. They go to, just use an example, they go to NAVFAC, which is Naval Facilities Systems Command, but basically Navy facilities, right? And we go there trying to sell them IT services. It's like, well, did you not see that we're like managing the facilities? There's another NAV over here, and it's called NAVWAR, which is Naval Information Warfare Systems Command or whatever. But that's the IT part of it. And so take the time to understand the mission. One of the ways you can do that, I like doing an organizational chart. I go in, if they've got one, I got it. And I start looking and I cross out the ones that I'm like, well, NAVFAC, that's not really for me. NAV Air, okay, maybe. NAVC, sure. Right. And I begin to do that. And then I do it the second tier and the third tier and the fourth tier down. These agencies and departments within the federal government are such broad organizations within their own agencies that you can look at all those different offices and you can decide which ones are best for you. And so by understanding that, you begin to understand who to build relationships with, which we'll talk about next. Another thing you want to really dig into is challenges and pain points. This is very important because if you have a product or a service or solution, it should be aligned to a problem a customer has. That's sales. Why would I buy anything from you if it's not addressing a need that I have? Right. I might have a need for just happiness or like I want to go on vacation. That's still a solution to a problem. My problem is I'm working too hard and I'm not enjoying life or something. You should really think about going to Maui. But also, or more importantly, in the federal market, right? Whatever we're selling to them should align to a problem. So you want to dig up these challenges and pain points. By the way, this is going to be kind of a fast training, but I easily have done 100 trainings in the last 2 or 3 years on just this discussion around business development. How do I understand challenges and pain points? So I have a ton of other training that totally goes into the how, but I'll give you a couple of examples right now. One of the ways I dig into the challenges and pain points is I look for, and I'm sorry, I can't remember the title. Maybe if somebody's on here remembers what the title was, but basically it's management challenges. It's the challenges that the agency admits to itself that these are the challenges we have. And these are the challenges in 2025 we want to address, right? So every year they do a report about this, management challenges. I put out ones where it's DoD cybersecurity challenges, and they talk about, they recognize cyber is such an important need, but here's the challenges we have. This is what we're open to industry coming in and discussing with us. Another example of pain points literally could be industry day slides. Sometimes in the Navy, I'm just picking on the Navy in a good way today. The Navy does a really good job putting out briefings to industry where they say, hey, here's what we do. Here's some of the opportunities we might have. Here's what we need help from industry, right? This is the area we need industry's help. And then the best way to understand challenges and pain points is when you get in, start having questions and care enough to understand about their challenges and pain points long before you talk about your solution. one quick thing is if you really know your solution well. For example, I'm starting a company called Nancy Co. on the side just as a demonstration GovCon business. And I'm going to get it to $1 million in revenue just so I can prove out, hey, if you follow my process, you can do the same thing. And so I'm doing that an hour a day. But I know that one of the problems, my solution, and my solutions around LinkedIn and communication engagement, one of the problems the government has is they're struggling to reach industry. They're struggling to reach you. So when I go in to talk, I'm not going to say, hey, I got LinkedIn solutions and we can do all this stuff to reach industry. I'm going to say, hey, Jane, are you running into this problem? Are you running into this problem? Tell me about how you're, how well you're doing reaching out to industry. Well, you want to make sure you know the problems. And then when you go in to have meetings, you can talk about this. Anyways, that's a sidebar going off talking about how to have meetings. The last one I had here is counter to challenges and pain points is understand their goals, their objectives, and the priorities. Every agency is built off. So you have the executive office, and Trump administration is going to come in and set a level of administration priorities. And from those, it's going to flow down to these major departments, and they're going to set their own priorities based on what the Trump administration or the presidential administration is laying out. They're going to set their priorities, and it'll flow down. And then along the way, they start establishing goals. And inside of a goal, they'll have objectives. How are we measuring, or what are we doing to achieve that goal? Those are kind of the objectives. And so if you begin to understand those priorities, goals, and objectives, you start understanding, again, where your solutions and your company aligns to that federal agency's need. And so all of this is going back to the point of you need to understand an agency. If you're going to sell to the federal government, and I don't mean you're trying to get a quick win so you can eat in the next 6 months. We all have to do that. But when you really think out, you're building a government contracting business for years, then you want to understand that agency almost better than they understand it themselves. Okay, second part of business development, three main parts are understand the agency, build relationships, and identify opportunities. This one is building strategic relationships. And I really wanted you to understand the difference between relationships that are at the networking level and relationships that are strategic. So inside of this training, we have over 100 people in this training on Twitter and YouTube and LinkedIn. And all of you are in my network and I am in yours, but we don't have a strategic relationship. So we might be able to touch base with each other. We can see each other and be friendly. We might even reach out and say, like I see Crystal there. It's like, hey, Crystal, can you make an introduction somewhere? Or can I talk to you about this type of opportunity? And she can feel comfortable doing the same thing because we're in a network together. That's different than a relationship. Even when you think about a teaming relationship, right? Those are kind of one and done type things. A strategic relationship, and in this case, I want to move it to the federal agencies. A strategic relationship is one where we are committed to mutual growth. That agency person that I'm building a relationship is committed to my growth the same as I am committed to theirs. I'll use a really good example because he's gone, and so I don't have to worry about him still being in there. But I had a very good strategic relationship with this guy, Matt, out in Crane, Indiana, working for the Navy. He was a small business deputy director out there. Anyways, we had a mutual a relationship focused on mutual growth. I was trying to learn more about Crane. They do so much out there and they spend so much money, and I wanted to understand them more. And so he guided me around, he made introductions, and he was trying to reach more industry and get more people involved in the opportunities that Crane had so that they had but just a bigger pool of vendors to look to and increase their supplier base. And so this was really important going forward. That's what I mean by mutual growth. An example of how you can measure that is that, especially with a federal agency partner, that they actually make introductions, right? If they're not willing to make introductions, they are not a strategic relationship. They're still in your network, right? But they're not the strategic relationship that will lead to growth. And then the other thing is they'll share information. Hey, this, as long as it's not underhanded, you never, ever, ever want to let somebody finish this sentence. I probably shouldn't tell you this. If somebody starts something off with that, stop them. Be their friend and stop them. Say, well, then don't. Let's you and I stop that right now because that's unethical. That's towing the line and standing on the line. I like to say toe the line, take a full step back, and then start talking. So sharing information, though, means stuff that anybody might know about. An example is if I walk into a director of IT and on the back of his wall, he's got a roadmap of where they're going for the next 10 years. I'm like, do you mind if we talk about that? Sure, I'll talk to you about it because I talked to the incumbents about it. I talked to other people. It is not sensitive information. And then the roles of people you're going to build strategic relationships with are three main roles that people are in within the federal market. The first one is the program office. So you want to be in there talking to the people who are actually going to use your products and services. Identify people in there. The second group is the small business office. I just mentioned Matt. Another one is contracting office. These three people are the three biggest sets of stakeholders. Really, they're the only stakeholders, but the three biggest stakeholders in your world when you're trying to get into an agency. So you want to build relationships with a contracting officer and specialist, but contracting officer that you can follow back up with them on. I just feel like I brutalized that whole sentence, but you know what I'm saying. You can follow up and have other meetings with them, even if it's like, hey, Tanya, can I reach out can I reach out next month, 5-minute touch base, see how it's going, and let you know anything we're doing. It's a strategic relationship. When she says, sure, reach out. And then as I move to the next slide, you'll see why she's so valuable. I put in here, and this is really important, when you're developing the strategic relationships, keep in mind, if your federal buyer doesn't know you, then how can they buy from you? They really cannot. And I say this about visibility all the time, and I think the next slide, I'm actually going to talk about visibility for 1 second. But if they can't find you, then how can they buy from you? Sometimes we work on these most miraculous solutions. We're trying to do all this heavy lifting, and I'm going to spend $10,000 and go to a conference that really only large primes should go to or something because it's tactical. It's like, well, if you're invisible to the buyer, why don't you take care of that first? And then you spend $10,000 later. So that brings me to this next slide I want to focus on. I want to ask you to do me a favor. I want you to go check your visibility score out right now. How visible are you to federal buyers? It'd take you 2 seconds, and then put it in the chat. Put your score, just the number. So go to GovCon in a Box, or if you can put the whole browser title in here, just open another tab really quick and put in govconinabox.com/company_browser. And you see it on my screen. Maybe someone would put it in the chat for me. But just go in really quick. Open a tab. I want to spend a whole 60 seconds waiting for you to do this. I want you to see what your score is. That's the most important thing. If you go into company browser, and let me share my screen really quick. Let me share one window. Where can I share it? I don't even know where I'm going. I don't know if it's this one, so let me try it. No, it's not this one. So, well, I don't know where it's at, but and now I lost my slides. So hold on 1 second. Let me pull my slides back up. I was trying to get all fancy there. Okay, slides, come on, get to slide 7. I'll get us back on track. I want you to check your score out, though. GovConInABox.com. Just go in there. If you do _browser, Jeffrey, it can't be 0. Is it really? I see a lot of you putting the scores in. Thank you for doing that. I'm going to pause and move on so I can get the last slide in. But check your score out. Like Sandra, and I'm just going to shout it out for 1 second. Sandra's at a 19. Sandra, I'm positive if you look at the guidance I provide, by tomorrow, you could double that or get it well over 50 with some very simple steps. I would be willing to bet it doesn't have a capability statement, doesn't have like a website, simple things that I provide a little video guidance and written guidance. All of it's on there. And it's available to you. So, Sandra, thanks for letting me pull you out there. Okay, last thing I want to talk about in business development. It's about understanding an agency, building strategic relationships, and identifying slam dunk opportunities. Slam dunk opportunities are ones that you're guaranteed to win. Or you look at it and you go, man, that's written for us. I can win that opportunity. An example is if somebody wrote an opportunity for Nancy Co's Slam Dunk, right, that company I'm starting. If somebody wrote that and it said LinkedIn engagement with small business government contractors, I'm like, well, that was written for me, right? And that's a really direct, and I could even go a little bit broader and still feel like it was written for me. You need to know what your slam dunk opportunity is. And when you do business development, it allows you to get in and identify opportunities. With that criteria for a slam dunk in mind, you start shifting left in the process. This is what we describe when we are talking about hearing about an opportunity earlier and earlier and earlier. So an example, not example, but the shifting left steps that I put here, when you shift left, think about the first or the last place you will ever hear about an opportunity is SAM. So inside of SAM, there might be an RFP in there. I put in long range acquisition forecast, but that probably should have been a separate bullet. But eBuy and SAM, this is where you hear about an opportunity that basically is dropped. It's like, okay, I can respond to it, but I don't have a lot of other things I can do. And then as you start shifting left, or in this case down, you can get a heads up on RFIs that are coming. Those strategic relationships that you have, they might tell you, hey, watch for an RFI coming out. They're not sharing anything sensitive or something they shouldn't. They're just saying, I know we're working on an RFI, watch for it, it's coming out. Or they might sit there and invite you to bid, right? They already have you in their world because you've been in there in all the different ways you could get in there. And they might reach out and say, hey, company ABC, why don't you bid? We're putting this out. We're putting it out to like 10 vendors or something because it's low enough price that they don't have to do other stuff. But when you're shifting left, you might be invited to bid. And then you start getting to the part that I really love, right? You can start being in there where you can shape the requirements. So an RFI is getting ready to come out, let's say in a few months. That means the program office is already thinking about this. They're turning it around. They're trying to write the requirements. Maybe they're getting beat up by the contracting shop saying those requirements are not clear. Maybe they don't really know what their objectives are. Well, they can engage with industry. They don't have to go through the formal market research yet. They just pick up a phone and call somebody. And if you're in there having conversations, then we talk about this in sales. This is you helping shape the requirements just by having conversations. Have you thought about AI being used this way? I just put out a post this morning about how the Trump administration is probably going to see the AI spending in the federal market 20x in his term. And that's a really important thing. And so I might be going in and having conversations with federal buyers that I have strategic relationships with, talking to them about how AI fits in to improve their world, cut costs, improve efficiencies, whatever it is, and how it aligns with our solutions, et cetera. And then the last thing is shifting left is my all-time favorite. It's kind of what I just was alluding to, is introduce the idea in the first place. Like maybe they're just sitting there and it's all going pretty. And I get in there and I start digging up pains they didn't really realize. And then I turn those pains into bigger pains by helping them recognizing how many other people it's impacting. And they're like, golly, I didn't even know about that problem. Now I'm aware of that problem. Now that problem is a pain and I've got to cure the pain. I got to get rid of the pain. Well, that's, funny. I got the solution right here, right? And that's what you want to do is you want to build relationships through business development strong enough that enables you to start introducing ideas because you are the trusted advisor to those federal buyers. Okay, here's what I want you to remember from today's training. And thanks for everybody checking your scores, putting them in. I appreciate that. And I'm excited for you to get to 100. In business development, remember this. First thing is pick one major agency. Don't let anybody in your company be responsible for more than one. I'm okay if it's the Navy or if it's the Army. Even that's way, way too big. But really, it should be like, if you think about DHS, it should be FEMA. When you talk about DHS, there's like 7 or 11 major agencies in there. That's kind of hard. So pick one agency and then know them better than they know themselves. You're driving to $5 million in revenue, let's say, and then you go get another 5 from another agency. And then once you have that agency and you begin to understand them, start building relationships. We call this targeting, identifying the people, and outreach, reaching out and starting to build relationships. Hey, if you don't know this, on the 13th, so next Monday, we've got another virtual networking event. Somebody asked me today how much, and it's free. I hate virtual events being charged for. It just amazes me on that thing. But certainly not a networking event. We're bringing you together because I have so many connections and I want you to meet each other. And it's a great way for me to finally go, oh my God, Jay, face-to-face, Crystal, face-to-face. We finally meet. So make sure you go on LinkedIn. Hopefully, I know somebody is going to put the link right now in chat. So wait a second, watch for the link if you need it, and then go register. When you register, more people come. I think we've looking at 200 plus people, and it's a really good session. So as you head into today, as you continue your business development, just remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is ending on time. I am doing that. I will see you in the next training.